Hello everyone, and welcome to this low code with application building blocks webinar. We're going to have a look at what they are and how it's done inside the Neptune DXP. I'm Lloyd, I'm a go-to-market specialist here at Neptune Software, and joining me today we have Robin.
Yeah, my name is Robert van het Hof. I'm also a low code expert.
Yes, and he'll be joining us on our conversation and our journey today as we look at how to use these application building blocks within this low-code app development environment. We'll have a look at changing the UI with preserving your bindings and events within the application designer. We'll have a look at quickly generating some APIs and integrating them within the app. And then we'll have a look at some adaptive apps as well and how they can be used as part of this larger process. So to set the scene, we'll be working with our delivery app template. And this is a responsive, easy to extend application that consists of geofenced delivery zones. It works offline, works with barcode scanning. We've got signature capture built in, photo capture built in, all to provide a system for managing deliveries around certain locations. And this is available for free to download within the store, within the platform itself. And so to set the scene of how we're going to use this application and this delivery template, first of all, we will download it from the store. We'll make a change to it. So we'll update the user interface. We'll define some external database tables to connect it to. And we'll generate some APIs based on those tables. We'll then integrate that all together. And then to finish off, we'll adapt. We'll build some adaptive applications that work with this whole process. So initially, downloading from the store is one of the most simple steps, and we'll run through that first of all. We'll make this change to the UI. We're going to change it from a list to a grid-based interface. We'll define these two tables, so a delivery header and a delivery detail table, which will be defined within a JSON structure, which we'll just import. And then following on from this, we'll be able to generate those APIs automatically using the API designer. We'll integrate them within the app designer. And then, as I mentioned, we will adapt and we'll work with those adaptive apps afterwards. So to get things going, we'll start by downloading the delivery app template from the store. But it's good to understand really what are these application building blocks and what is this store that I keep talking about. Well, application building blocks are these modular and reusable development components. They're simple to download, they're easy to implement, and they're open for adaptation to suit any particular requirement. And these building blocks range from small code snippets and pre-made connectors to large templates and application frameworks, UI components that can all be joined together to enable rapid application development, since you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. And as I mentioned, all available within the store within the platform. So we're looking at a fresh version of the Neptune platform here. I can log in for the first time and I can immediately navigate to the store. Within the store, we can browse all of the application building blocks which are currently available, and we can search for the delivery template app, and we can hit download to import that application straight into our platform. With that done, we can search for it. So we'll bring up the application management tool, and here we'll see the Neptune delivery app. We can open it up directly within the app designer with just one click there. And then to enable this template to work, we're actually going to need to import a couple of media items. And so I've included this media pack with the application building block that you can download and import, and it just consists of a couple of JavaScript libraries and a few CSS style sheets. So by jumping into the deployment log, I can import this deployment, and that will automatically generate all of this media within the media library, here within a delivery app subfolder. And so now within the header of our application, all of the scripts and link references to our style sheets will be able to point to these files, which are now stored within the platform. And there we go. We have a functional delivery app within about 2 minutes there from a fresh installation.
So if I understand correctly, this already is, well, an application template you just downloaded.
Yes, yeah. So it's a whole template. We call it a template because it's not just a single modular like interface component. It's a number of pages and functionalities, especially with its offline capabilities. It's very much a template that can be utilized and built on top of. It's quite easy to customize and rebrand as examples.
Okay, awesome.
Cool. So with that set up, we can move to our next step, step 2, which is to change the interface. And this is one of the points where we can point out some of the unique attributes of the application designer. So we're going to start with this list-based layout. And if you're familiar with the SAP UI5 or OpenUI5 framework, then this might look quite familiar. On the left here, we have a list with a custom list item in. And then we're going to take this list and we're going to change it into this grid-based layout. And this will use a grid list item instead. And with a few CSS tweaks as well, that's what's going to enable this nice layout on the right. And just to break down what's going to happen in the next clip, I just want to highlight that we're going to take our one toolbar from our original list that comes with the application template, and we're going to split it out into 2. And the reason for this is that it will enable this stacked layout of our date and our status of the delivery.
And that's because it's inside a V-box, a vertical box grid item, and otherwise the content would be spread horizontally.
Yes, yeah, very good point. So let's have a look at this in action. We'll start by just pointing out this is the list, this is what we're going to change, and then we can start working with the components in the app designer in this drag and drop fashion. So we can drag and drop our grid list, and we can drop our grid list item inside. We can take the name of our original list and we can change it to an old version. And we're just going to replace our grid list with that original name. We can set up a model source as a generic array, which matches our old list. And now all we need to do is move our components from that list into our grid list. And so straight away I can save, activate, and we'll be able to see that we've already swapped round into this new grid-based layout. And there you are. There's the two, the date and the status, which are actually not wrapping correctly by default here. So I'll duplicate the toolbar and I'll just move some components back and forth between them in order to enable this stacked layout. So by right-clicking, I can utilize the duplication, the copy-paste. I can enable and I can disable and I can delete as well, all within the right-click menus there. So now we have a stacked layout and a comprehensible grid. All I'm going to do here is add a couple of style classes into the built-in style sheet. And then to apply these to our interface components, it's as simple as setting the style class property name within the component properties here. So with that done, I can save, activate, and we can look at that one more time. And now we have a nicely spaced out grid layout that's fully responsive. So if I change the layout of the app designer here, then we can see that as I change the size of the screen that the app's running on, all that grid layout is going to act responsively. And then to just enable the click through here, the press event on our grid item, all we need to do is change the type, which is inactive by default, to active, and then we can copy and paste that press event from our list into our grid list item. So we don't need to change anything here, we just copy and paste the functionality across, and with that we can now click on any of these grid items and we can reproduce all the functionality that we had initially, but with this nice new UI.
Yeah, one thing I also noticed is that the data binding stays intact, right?
Yes, yeah, so because we just dragged and dropped the components from one place to another, all the bindings worked exactly the same. And since we're just piping the data through to this new grid instead of the list, then the bindings will take on all of the properties as they were before. So no
Awesome.
need to rebind, no need to recode anything here at all. We haven't written a single line of code up to this point. We've already got a fully functional application with a custom layout. So
Cool. Yeah, that definitely speeds up development.
Yes. Okay, so a change made, that's pretty good. Let's move on to define some database tables. Now, this is important because the delivery app template comes with its own built-in database. And when I say built-in, I just mean it lives within a object, within a JavaScript file, within the application. So it's running locally off its own database. But in order to enable this application to be scalable, to work across, to work independently from its own internal database, we need to create some database tables. So how do we do that within the Neptune DXP? Well, we can work with the table definition tool. And with this, we can take a JSON structure, a JSON table definition, and we can just import that straight into the tool. And this will generate all of the properties with the types and whether or not it's a unique or a nullable value, all automatically. And then complementary to this, we have the table browser, and this serves a very similar purpose, but it allows us to import the actual data into the structure that we've defined. So here is the header data from our application, so all of the main delivery parent information, and we can import that JSON into our table, which we'll define, and then that will generate all of the orders automatically within the table as well. So let's have a look at that in action as well here. So we'll start by looking at this data definition JavaScript file, which is embedded within the template application. And here we can see we have a header array and we have a details array. And this is actually the database which is running the application when you download it. Within the app here as well, I've included these JSON files, which you can just save. And these are the table definitions which are based on the data structure included within the app. So to import it, all you need to do is open the table definition tool, add a new table, click import, and then within here, you can simply select the JSON file. And as you can see, all the properties here generated automatically. And it's just a case of then pressing save and display. And then we have a table defined within the platform. We can repeat the process here for our second table. And what this is doing is it's actually creating tables within the SQLite database, which comes by default with the Neptune platform. So whenever you start a new instance up, you'll have a functional database straight away with this SQLite structure ready to go. Here, I'm just going into the table browser and I'm opening up the table that we just defined. And then I can take the data from the app. I'm actually printing it to the console for convenience here. I can take that array and I can save it straight to a JSON file. So I can just paste it into a text editor, save it as a .json. And with that structure ready to go, I can just import it straight into the table that we've already defined. So here, as you can see, that all that data from the headers JSON gets brought straight in and populates all of the table. I can repeat the process here as well for the details table, which we also defined, and you simply import the second set of JSON data to populate that table. So, downloaded, changed, tables defined. What's next? We'll generate. So, what does this involve? Generating involves essentially taking a table definition and using the API designer to automatically create the CRUD methods required to interact with that table. But not only does this create the CRUD methods, it also creates a full Swagger definition with a built-in Swagger UI as well. So you can utilize that to test the APIs that are generated as well. And with this all made, it makes it super simple to integrate with. But we'll have a look at actually generating them now. So based on the table definitions, which we defined in the previous step, I can come into the API designer, create a new API, select table definition, and then I can import. And it's just a case then of simply selecting the table which we defined. I can use it within the app designer. That's just a one-click setting. And then here you can see the get put, post, and delete methods with all of their request and response definitions, all generated automatically based on the table.
This is a huge time saver.
Yeah, I've never seen anything quite like this before. It's when you've got tables already running within the platform, the ability to just generate these APIs instantly and to be able to use them within the app designer is a huge time saver. Yeah, you're right. Cool. So there we have it. 2 separate APIs, each with their own individual operations. And to really prove that these are working, I can jump into the API client. I can select the get method on one of our tables. And here you can see the full body of the response, which is just all the data from the table. So APIs generated. Let's integrate. So integration, this is one of the more comprehensive steps, as we'll take the APIs and the tables which they're talking to, and we're going to pipe the data via the APIs from the tables into some model arrays within our application. And these O model arrays are simply just storage containers, essentially, just a holding space for the data. And with this implemented, what we can do is we can utilize the 200 response, so a success response from the API, to then move the data from this internal storage within the app into some variables where then we can obviously utilize them within the actual application itself. So let's see that in action now. So moving back into the app designer, we can grab 2 of the REST API components and we can drop them into the resources of our app. It's as simple as selecting the operation that you'd like this API to represent within the dialog there and just giving it a name as well. So here we can set up the details, get request as well, and we'll call it REST API details. Now we have those 2 REST APIs in place, we can grab 2 model arrays as well, one for each of the APIs, so one to store the header data, one to store the detail data, and we can set the model source to the response of our API. So now this model has context of what data will be arriving into it. We can set the APIs to trigger when the app loads by changing the set init to online. And then again, just within the properties of the component here, we can point the response to the models that we have just created as well. So now that's completely set up. Both our APIs will move the data in from the tables into those model arrays. And now with that done, we can actually replace these 2 lines here, which are taking the data from the data definition JavaScript file, and we can replace that with the data which comes from the model array itself. And here's the syntax for writing that. It's as simple as writing model and then the component name, and then you can use the .getData method. So here we can set our order headers and our order details to each of their respective model arrays, and then just use the .getData method to pull the data out. And then again, to prove that everything's working, I'm going to console log both of those variables. And now I'm going to move them into the Ajax Success events of our APIs. And this is what I demonstrated before we started the clip within the diagram, is that once the API has successfully pulled the data in, it will trigger this Ajax Success event and actually move the data from the model into the variables. So now here within the console, we can see it's printing both of the variables and all of the data that it contains, which is obviously all the table data. And then just to prove that now it's running completely independently from this data which comes built into the application, I can comment all of that out, save, activate, and on a refresh, we can see all the same delivery data here within the app, but now this is running off independent tables.
So you went from static data to live data in only a few seconds. That's pretty impressive, I have to say.
That's cool. Yeah, it's enabled by all of these tools and their individual wizards and functions coming together and working seamlessly. So yeah, it's super easy to swap out an internal database like this with one that's now pointing to independent tables within the platform.
Yeah, and also great to see you generate APIs just in a couple of seconds with a matter of a few clicks, with all the operations necessary. I'm blown away.
That's good. It's possible to regenerate them as well. So if you make a change to the table definition, you can regenerate the API as well, and it will still have full context of the correct definition. So then when it comes to integrating down the line within your applications, those definitions being made automatically makes life really easy when it comes to binding within the app designer. There's no guesswork when it comes to property names. The properties are passed as metadata through with the API. So it's as simple as choosing where you'd like to bind and then selecting the binding from a dialog wizard. So now our delivery template application is running completely independently. We've got a scalable delivery app in that sense. But how can we make this better? Well, we can build some adaptive apps. And I'm going to build 2 adaptive apps in the space of a few minutes here. And I'll explain what these adaptive apps are. They're based on adaptive templates. And adaptive templates, we currently provide 4. The first one is a business intelligence template. And this is used just for analytics. So you can take data and present it visually within a number of different formats, be that line charts, column charts, pie charts, or just straight up within tables, all with built-in filtering and sorting capabilities. As a list-based template, which is ideal for presenting lists of data. As a detail template, which is great for editing and adjusting data within a form. And then we have tile adaptive templates as well, which are designed to run on top of a tile within a Neptune Launchpad. And this enables you to build custom dashboards, all with no code. That's one of the key features of these adaptive templates, is that they enable you to create applications without actually coding anything. And that's possible simply with 3 steps. Step 1 is to choose the adaptive template that's most suitable for your requirements. These adaptive templates can be downloaded from the Neptune store. They are application building blocks. Or you can create your own custom templates too. It's a framework. So with the right knowledge, you can create these templates too and utilize them within your own business. Step 2 is to connect. So taking one of these adaptive templates, you can plug it into a Neptune table, into a SQL database, into a SAP system, or just straight into a server script. And these server scripts can contain APIs on their own as well. So you can really connect to any kind of data source that you could possibly think of with this flexible system. And then step 3 is to configure. So with the template and with your data source, you can configure an application with our no-code adaptive designer. And that's what we'll see in the next clip here. I'll open up the adaptive designer within the cockpit. But before I do, I need to jump into the store and actually download those adaptive framework template application building blocks, which I just mentioned. So 1 click to download, and that will bring in all of these different adaptive templates for me to use. Now I can open the adaptive designer and we can get going creating some adaptive apps. So creating is done via this dialog wizard. I can just give our app a name. I select that template. I configure my data. So here I'm just going to point to our delivery header table and I press save. And we have the foundation of our app ready to go. It's as simple as then drag and dropping the properties that we want to display within this application. And this is a list-based template that I've utilized. So with a few drag and drops there and a save, we've got a list-based app showing that data from our table. It's then simple to customize. The properties on the right here allow you to give it a name. You can enable deleting. You can enable an export, which then allows you to export the data which is visible within the application, all with simple settings on the right hand side there. So let's duplicate the designer here and create another adaptive app, and this will be based on an edit template, but we're going to point it at the same delivery header table. And now you can see how this template differs. It still gives you the same foundation, but when I drag and drop these properties into the app, it's going to create them within this form. You can change the field types of any of these properties here. So I can change the date to a date picker. So then it's nice and easy to select a date rather than having to type it in and deal with different formats. And for these true and false values, you can change the field type to a switch, which makes sense to represent a true and false. So with that set up, I can save. I'll give it a title as well of order header edit. And now I can go back to the list-based application and I can set up the item press event. And all this is going to do is point to that edit application that we just made. And with that setting done, I can now click on any of these items and it will open our other adaptive app and actually bring that data straight across, so then we can edit it and save it. I can enable create as well, and this I can just point it to that second adaptive app as well. So now at the top of our list-based app, we can click create, and that opens our edit-based template, but with no data passed through. So then we can input some data here. I'm actually going to create a new order within the system and give it all of these details, and I hit save. We close this down and we can see that new line at the top there, which comes from that edit-based app, and now it's visible within the list-based app. And if I refresh our Neptune delivery template here, we can see that new order within the map, actually ready to use within the application. So there we have, here as well, actually, I'm just going to show the flow. So this is the flow of data that we've set up here. Here we can see the create and item press events piping the ID of our record through to the edit-based application, which is what enables that really simple click and edit and save functionality that we just saw.
So based on the context, it shows the order to edit or it creates a new order. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we've taken our delivery app, we've connected it to an independent database. In this case, we're utilizing the default SQLite database, but by the Neptune platform enables support for Microsoft SQL, for Postgres SQL, as well as connecting to a SAP HANA database, for example. And then on top of that, we've connected that independent database to a couple of adaptive apps for creating orders and editing orders. But then it's simple to then, within minutes, create more applications for managing drivers, reporting on orders, generating some analytics on top of that as well. So, do you think that's scalable, Robin?
I think it's tremendously scalable. I mean, you create database tables which are shared across the delivery app and the adaptive applications you just built. I'm without words actually. Within now, what's it like? 15 minutes, you created 3 applications which are fully fledged, capable of working offline, connecting to each other, responsive. I mean, this is an application. If I would code it by hand, it would take a couple of weeks, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine how long it would take me to build from scratch. But yeah, that's what I meant by not having to reinvent the wheel. We've built these application templates for a number of different app functions. So this is one of our more comprehensive templates, since it has all of these functionalities built in. But regardless of the complexity, it's just as simple to create these database tables and to create these adaptive apps that allow you to interact with any of the fully fledged application templates you can download from the store. But of course, you can break it down more. You can download individual UI components and start to assemble custom applications that can still benefit from the wizards and the speed of generating these tables and these APIs, complementary to the actual design of the interface and the functionality of the app.
Yeah, but there has to be a catch. I mean, me as a developer, can I just go to the website, download the trial, and do the same, or should I, first buy or get other stuff, or can I just follow along?
That's a great question. So there's really no catch. You can indeed go to the Neptune website. You can follow through to the free trial download page. You log into our account portal and you can download the platform, and you can use all of the tools. Everything you've seen here today is capable for free. The only catch is that you have 2 user licenses with the free trial. So you can log in as an admin and you can set up an additional user to log in, so you can test out role-based permissions, for example. But when it comes to actually then scaling out and setting up for a number of users, that's when, of course, you'll need to start licensing for the number of users that are going to benefit from all of these templates and applications that you'll be utilizing and building.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, of course. But yeah, this is ultimately scalable. I can fully see this being embraced by lots of developers who are otherwise tasked with multiple days creating a POC, and now it can be done almost during lunchtime.
Yeah, you could do it on your lunch break, actually, considering the speed that we did it today. It's worth noting as well, this is all using the Open UI5 framework. So even though this looks like quite a custom application, it's actually just an integrated map component that's surrounded by all of these industry standard Open UI5 components. So there's standardization, there's governance, there's a common user experience across all the apps that you can build out of the Neptune DXP, but you have the flexibility of being able to integrate with these advanced functionalities. So the mapping and the offline caching of the map data. That's not something we even dug into a lot today, but yep, full offline capabilities still with this whole setup here.
Yeah, and for me as a developer, I like what you showed is creating the API endpoints. Normally it's a bit of a tedious task, but now it's just being generated. And I can imagine if the data definition changes, the API changes, but also the Swagger definition, right?
Yeah. And with that Swagger definition, you're free to import it wherever you see fit. So you can generate APIs within the platform, and they can be utilized outside of the platform as well, as a API management almost in that sense, just because of the standards which we're adopting. Swagger API definitions are great for being able to move them around between systems as well.
Yeah, this was very impressive.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Robin. That leaves me with only one more thing to say, and that's thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, I hope you were as impressed as Robin was. And if you'd like any more information, please just visit the Neptune website to find out everything else that you could ever need to know. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.